Joining me on the Newshour tonight is Ambassador John Bolton, who was the National Security Advisor to President Trump in his first term. Thank you very much, Mr. Bolton, for speaking to me. President Trump has been on a tariff imposition spree, and India has been on the receiving end, subjected to a 50% tariff. The additional 25% tariff is going to kick in from the 27th of August, and this is a penalty by the Americans for India deciding to purchase Russian oil, in the words of President Trump. Clearly, India is unhappy, but as someone who's worked with Trump before, what's his thinking behind this? Because clearly this is hypocrisy as far as Russia is concerned.
Well, it's very hard to say what the thinking is behind Trump's decision. I do think that it's important that ways be found to cut off the supply of exports from Russia involving oil and gas, which are basically being used to fund their war in Ukraine. And the secondary sanctions in Trump's approach are designed to penalize Russia by penalizing the purchasers of the oil and gas. I think there are other ways to do it, like removing the price cap on the prohibition of exporting Russian gas. That we can't import Russian gas or oil into the U.S. or into Europe, but the price cap allows others to buy it, and I would just eliminate that. But I think the main contrast at the moment is that Trump has not imposed secondary sanctions, secondary tariff on China. In fact, the negotiations with China, which are supposed to come to their end date next week, look like they're about to be extended for another 90 days. And there's no explanation, no reason that anybody's giving why China, which purchases significantly more Russian oil and gas than India or Turkey or others, should somehow be exempt from the sanctions. So there are a number of contradictions in what Trump is doing, and I think from an outsider's perspective, it's very hard to explain why that's true.
India has responded strongly to what Trump has decided and also referred to American double standards and hypocrisy. The first is that the United States imports uranium and fertilizers from Russia and punishes India for purchasing oil, while the same money US gives Russia also funds the war in Ukraine. Secondly, the Biden administration had actually encouraged India to purchase oil from Russia to keep global oil prices stable. So shouldn't India be understandably outraged?
Well, I would say in terms of U.S. imports from Russia, that Trump may impose tariffs on those imports. You know, in 2024, the last year for which there are full statistics, the total American imports from Russia were only $3 billion. And I think it's almost entirely fertilizer and fertilizer-related chemicals. I'd be happy to ban the import of anything from Russia. I mean, I don't know why we're subsidizing them even to the extent of $3 billion, which is not much given total U.S. trade with the world. And Trump's tariffs may have that effect. We'll have to see what he does. But it's certainly the case that it's legitimate to say, well, how can you complain about what we're doing when you're importing things from Russia? So I think the answer to that is to stop the imports from Russia. But this question of the export of oil and gas is a problem, and it's the principal way in which Russia finances the war in Ukraine. So I think a more productive way to do this is to try and find alternative sources of oil and gas at acceptable prices for India. If the Biden administration was encouraging India to import oil and gas from Russia after the invasion of Ukraine, that certainly I have to say I was unaware of that. And if that's the case, it certainly puts a different light on Biden's perspective, which would make it totally hypocritical for trying to oppose the Russian invasion in some respects, but then doing what you said with respect to India.
There is a trade delegation expected to visit India a few days before the additional 25% tariffs kick in. Are you hopeful of a negotiated settlement, or is Trump's mind completely made up?
Well, I don't want to say I'm confident, because ultimately Trump makes every one of these decisions. He just loves the tariffs. I mean, my own view is I'm against almost all these tariffs. I think they're incredibly destructive. I think they're based on a false economic theory. And I think the U.S. has done incredible damage to itself, to its own domestic economy, and to our relations with friends and allies all around the world. So I don't like the idea of the tariffs at all. And the sooner that countries can reach agreement with the Trump administration to get the tariffs lower, we're all better off. So I hope for success, in the sense I'd like to get to zero tariffs on either side.
Strategically speaking, has Donald Trump ended up pushing India closer to pursuing strategic and economic opportunities with both Russia and China? Because deepening economic cooperation with China, which happens to be our geopolitical rival, is India being compelled to make that choice? Putin is expected to visit India soon. The Prime Minister has spoken with him this evening. Our NSA was in Moscow. Prime Minister Modi also meeting Xi Jinping later this month. What does that signify to America and the Americans?
Well, I'm worried that might be the consequence. So I'd urge everybody in India, particularly the leadership, to recognize that Trump's policies may not outlast the Trump administration. He is an aberration in American politics. These tariffs, by the way, could well be declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court in the very near future. There's litigation that's challenged the tariffs, the authority that Trump claimed to have for the tariffs that were widely announced on April the 2nd in two trial courts in the U.S. The tariffs have been declared unlawful beyond the president's authority. They're both on appeal now. An argument was held on one of the appeals in the Federal Circuit, which is a court right below our Supreme Court. People are expecting a decision in the very near future, and I think the Supreme Court will give it expedited treatment. My guess is that these tariffs will be found invalid, and if that's the decision, obviously the sooner the better. My point here is, before India makes any strategic realignment, certainly not back toward Russia or closer to China, keep in mind that we may be going through a very temporary phase here in the United States. It's certainly not in America's interest to force India back into a closer relationship with Russia or with China. That, in my view, is completely contrary to American interest.
Ambassador Bolton, I want to ask you, why is President Donald Trump treating China with kid gloves? He announced a big tariff but scaled it down, and it stands at around 30% now. Both China and the EU also purchase large quantities of fossil fuels from Russia. Why is there no punishment there? And is there any logic to these tariff terrorism, as it is being called by President Donald Trump?
Well, I'm not sure the Europeans necessarily escaped unscathed. I mean, I think India was the first and so far the only country to be hit with the secondary sanctions threat. So there may be more coming. I am worried about Trump's view on China. I think people have incorrectly characterized him as being negative on China, taking a harder line. I don't see that necessarily. I think he still views himself as a friend of Xi Jinping, and there are a number of China experts in the United States commenting that he seems to be trying to set up a fairly attractive trade deal with China. I think that's a mistake. I think if you look at problems in international trade, not just for the United States, but for the world as a whole, the biggest problem is China. So why a rational president would tariff our friends and allies and the rest of the world, but go easy on China, I can't understand. But that may well be what Trump's about to do. I think that would make all of the disarray and economic pain caused by the tariffs themselves that much worse if the world sees China getting a lenient deal.
Let me also talk about Pakistan, which continues to be a thorny issue now between India and the United States of America. Trump claimed he mediated a ceasefire between India and Pakistan, a claim India has rejected outright. And what's more, Donald Trump ends up inviting the Pakistani Field Marshal Asim Munir for lunch, with another visit also being planned very soon. We thought America understood India's concerns about cross-border terrorism by Pakistan and its proxy war, which was one of the major reasons for strategic partnership between United States and India. What is Trump doing here?
Well, I think certainly the approach characterizes the way we behaved in 2019 when there was a terrorist attack inside Kashmir. But Trump is, these days, he's fascinated with the idea of winning a Nobel Peace Prize. And so he's claimed having made peace between any number of adversaries. Today in Washington, the leaders of Armenia and Azerbaijan will be there, and he's going to declare that he's made peace between the two of them. And all these things would be good if they were true, but a lot of them rest on pretty shaky foundations, including his claim about his role in the recent India-Pakistan escalation over this attack in Kashmir. So it's part of Trump the salesman selling himself to the Nobel Peace Prize Committee as the person responsible. And I understand and have heard from a number of friends and colleagues and media in India that that's not been well received, and I can certainly understand why. But the explanation has nothing to do with American foreign policy. It has to do with Donald Trump seeking a Nobel Peace Prize for Donald Trump.
And finally, before I let you go, the former American Vice President Mike Pence, among others, have warned of these tariffs resulting in a backlash in the U.S. Is Trump in perhaps an effort to appease the MAGA lobby, creating trouble back home as far as his logic for this tariff spree is concerned?
Well, I think he's backtracked significantly already, but I think his fascination with tariffs goes back a long way. It is not the prevailing Republican philosophy. The tariffs are a hidden tax on American consumers and businesses. Trump tells the American people that foreigners, foreign governments, foreign companies pay the tariffs. Obviously, they do not. But there's a lot of confusion about it. I think the tariffs could be a tipping factor in sending the economy downhill. And if so, I think Republicans will suffer in the 2026 midterms, which I wouldn't like to see. As I said earlier, I think the tariffs, I think this whole program is a terrible mistake.
Thank you very much, John Bolton, for joining me on the Newshour tonight. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me.